the show. The show is yet to begin, and we'll have a lot of excitement, a lot of fun today with two great, amazing storytellers with us. Both are award-winning storytellers, and they create a difference in the world of storytelling. They are the ones who bring out a lot of ideas which is behind the scene and develop the emotions and feelings. So how can creative writing modern age not go with a small welcome from our side? So with that, I'll start sharing my screen for the small welcome for our two guests. So that was a small introduction from Creative Writing Modern Age. We have Ramendra and we have Dr. Mike Lockett joining us all the way from US. So we will have a thunderous session today with this two amazing storytellers and of course our guests who have joined us. Thank you for joining us and keeping that faith in us always. Veena ma'am is there. She's the mentor of storytelling from Creative Writing Modern Age. Welcome, Veena ma'am, also to the platform. And we are really, really happy that during this festive season here in India, you are still there with us. So it's really amazing to have you always with us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Veena ma'am. We are all storytellers. We know that. It's not a hidden fact. We try to tell our stories in different ways possible. Then why there is a need to have a mentor for storytelling? That's the great question, which I always ask myself, and I invite guests who are really award-winning storytellers. Don't we really say stories all the time? Whether we were a small kid with our parents, we were telling stories. Right now, when we are wives and mothers at home, we too again tell stories. So we are all storytellers. We are all living in the network of stories. There isn't a stronger connection between people than the art of storytelling. So it was an ancient art and a valuable form of human expression. Because story is essential, so many art forms are there, and the word storytelling is also used in many ways. Stories do teach us about life, about ourselves, and also about others. Story is a unique way for everyone to develop an understanding, respect, and appreciation for the cultures and promote a positive attitude to people from different lands, races, religions. So basically, the future belongs to a different kind of person with a different kind of mind. Artists, inventors, storytellers, creative, and the holistic right brain thinkers, which I consider my storytellers to be. So today we have in the inaugural session, because Creative Writing Modern Age intends to start the series this month of November, which is also considered as Children's Day month. So we intend to bring in a lot of storytellers to you every week who will come up and share their stories. So we expect that all the storytellers do join us this session and share the live as much as possible. And don't forget to put a comment, because your comment will fetch you an certificate also. If you write a proper comment that you're enjoying with your good name in the comment box, you will also be eligible for an e-certificate for your participation in the storytelling inaugural fest. So first of all, I would like to introduce my guests today. Dr. Mike Lockett was an educator for 33 years, and for 21 years, he has taught elementary school and middle school students. He has served the central office administrator, and middle school, high school principal for 12 more years. During all that time, he was a part-time storyteller. He says his real love was teaching and telling stories. When Dr. Lockett retired in 2005, he became a full-time storyteller. Wow, that's amazing. And then a children's author too. Wow. So all the children, those who have joined today, so it's a big wow, wow for you all, both two great storytellers with a lot of children's stories. He has given over 4,000 programs across 32 states in USA and in 17 countries. He has been telling stories for over 4 decades, that is around approximately 45 years. Dr. Lockett says he loves to write and tell stories. It brings him great joy when his stories and books are enjoyed by audiences of all ages. So tonight we get him to a chance, Dr. Lockett sharing few stories with us and also to talk to him about his work. So that is what our first guest it is. And don't forget, we have another award-winning writer, Ramendra Kumar, the storyteller, inspirational speaker with 41 books to his name. And recently too, he has published his great book. So we will hear from him about his new launched book too. Ramen's writings have been translated into 30 languages and have found a place in several textbooks and anthologies in India as well as abroad. Mr. Ramendra Kumar is also the managing director of Creative Writing Modern Age, and hence we are really lucky to have this amazing personality along with us today too. And we will have a lot of stories today. So first, I would love to ask both of you the same question that is it interesting to be a storyteller or a teacher? So what do you suggest?
I have to say a storytelling teacher, because as a teacher, I constantly used stories to reach my children. We have so many children that learn by hearing, some by sight, some by doing with their hands, but stories tend to reach the young, the old, and everyone. So stories are a good way that you can reach all learners.
Wow, that's great. Now coming to Ramendra, what do you think? A teacher is a good storyteller, better than a storyteller, or a teacher? What would you love?
I would say that I wouldn't talk about, every parent is a teacher. And ideally, every parent should be a storyteller. So I have always told parents in my mentoring classes that there is nothing which can bond better than a story, especially at night, just before going to sleep. Because when you talk to the child, when you tell him a story, tell him or her, she's listening to your voice. She's feeling your presence, the voice modulation, the way you tell the story, the expressions and all that. That is one of the strongest connects. And tomorrow, suppose you have told her a story about a tiger. Tomorrow she goes to a bookshop or she sees on TV a tiger. She connects that particular tiger with you, your voice, your expressions. So you understand it's such a strong bond. I always say that if the parent cannot tell his or her own stories, read out stories, get into that space and stimulate the creativity and imagination. When we watch TV, suppose all of us are watching Mowgli or Tarzan on TV. For all of us, Tarzan looks the same, There's no difference, right? But when you're reading a book or watching Mike tell a story, he's a fantastic storyteller. I've heard a couple of his stories. But I'm watching Mike, the way he's acting it out, something I can see, some is unsaid. So my mind, for me, the story of the cat, which he has told, the dog and the cat is different. For Rachana, the cat is different. For Noor, the cat is different. So our imagination is stimulated, our curiosity is stimulated, and nothing can be better than that. But when you're watching television or doing something on whatever, on the net or whatever, it's all there. So where is the curiosity? Where is the imagination? It's all ready-made for you. So I would request that all parents should be storytellers or story readers.
And they need to start that from birth. Hearing is the very first sense that children develop before they leave their womb. And my sons even leaned down carefully to mama's belly and told stories before the babies were born, because even before birth, children hear your voice and they get accustomed to it. And so the younger you start telling stories, the better off your children are going to be. A wise, wise comment that parents are the first teachers and the first storytellers.
I would like to add that what Mike said is so very important. And in mythology, in Mahabharata, we have this instance where Abhimanyu is in his mother's womb and he learns from there how to pierce the Chakravyuh. And ultimately, when his father is absent, and he pierces the Chakravyuh and saves the Pandavas from complete annihilation. In the womb, he learns everything.
I don't know if you wanted to continue asking more questions.
Yes, yes, yes.
Answer,
I'm coming.
or we can tell stories.
Yeah, sorry so for that little network issues. Yeah, I just was coming to that question. Very rightly said, Ramendra. I just agree with both of you that yes, being a mother myself, I know that there were certain stories, and even now I can correlate because my children, my younger one also loves a lot of stories, because I remember when my elder one was born, that time I was a little bit of more of agile, going outside and roaming in the nature. That I was not reading a lot of books, but my younger one's born, I was reading quite a lot of books and even writing. And today I can see that repercussions. She too loves to read and write. She is composing, she's writing. So it's like whatever you said, it's in the womb. It's really true. It's true. And I really feel that every mother should start that during the conception time, so that, you know, the attraction to the story and good stories comes from the womb itself. So that was really a good way to start. And coming to my next question, which I would always love to start with, I would ask first, okay, Mike, tell us a bit about your journey as a storyteller, Mike. We'd love to know from you, since it was a transition from a teacher to a storyteller. How did you do it? And just a little bit of the journey which came through the decades, I think 45 years. So tell us a little bit about that journey.
I started telling stories when I was just a little child. And the reason, as a child, I became nervous to speak around adults, and I was scared to talk in front of my friends. I was a very shy person. You could not tell it now, but I used to be afraid to speak in front of others. Always worried, what will someone think? So I learned to make jokes. I learned to tell stories. I could hear something, I could repeat it and say it, and I became very good as a young child at repeating and telling stories. And that allowed me to react around my peers. It allowed me to react around adults. And so when I became a teacher later, I found that I used stories in my classroom. So stories every single day to children. If I wanted to tell a story in science class, for example, and a child was worried because their project had failed, I would tell them about Thomas Edison, whose lab burned up. In the middle of the night, he lost everything. And a reporter put a microphone in front of him and said, "How do you feel about losing everything?" And he says, "Good, all my mistakes are now gone. I can start all over." And a few days later, he invented the incandescent light bulb. I could tell my students stories about people who had failed, you know, as a youth, who still succeeded in life. And I could tell them stories from different countries to introduce them to the country. And I found it natural for me to tell stories. And then someone asked me, I hear you telling stories when I go by your classroom. Would you come out and tell stories at our library? It was one of my local librarians, and I was scared at first. But I started going out and telling stories to, first of all, children. Then I found out that adults like stories as much or better than children, because the first stories were told by adults and for adults. Later, we start thinking of children's story hour, but stories are meant really for all ages. And I expanded my storytelling until my audiences became bigger. And then I started doing more and more storytelling and more speaking. And the writing of stories, the telling of stories allowed me to become confident, like you're encouraging your writers to write. Well, sometimes when they write, the things that they write, when they learn to start sharing them with others, their confidence level gets better and it allows them to succeed. And that's what's happened with my storytelling. I started doing it as a thing just for children, but then it became for children and adults. And now I tell stories all around the country. I've told stories in quite a few other countries, and I absolutely love being able to share my tales. So there's where my journey began. And now I do things like taking stories and putting them into children's books. And I absolutely love, like one of my favorite illustrations that one of the illustrators put inside of one of my books shows me exactly like I'm meant to be. And that happens to be standing before a group telling stories from all different countries around the world. So now I put my writing to good use, my imagination to good use. And I don't have as many books as you do. I've got 27 to my name, but I love the time that I spend writing and telling stories. So I know you have to love it too.
Very true, very true. I just agree with you, Mike. And now it will be interesting to listen from, I think, Ramendra, because he has a different story altogether. He is from the corporate world. So I would really love to listen from him about his journey. How did he turn out? Because being in the corporate world, in the hustle and bustle of the life, how did you just imagine to become a storyteller and write so many books, being the author of so many books? So, Ramendra, can you please share about your journey?
Yeah, I think I shared it once on this platform, but for Mike, it would be new. So I wrote my first poem when I was 8 years old, and it was very, very pathetic, possibly the worst piece of verse that has ever been written. It went something like this. Topsy and Tim went for a swim. Topsy swam well and broke the spell. Tim swam badly and went home sadly. Such a sad, pathetic poem. But the poet in me was absolutely proud, and I took it to my father and showed it to him. The pride was there, but at the same time, that apprehension was there that he would say that, what is this? Like like many parents in India say, what is this silly stuff you are writing poetry and all? Learn maths or science, your brain will develop. Or he'll say that, okay, it's good, but you can do better. You should do better. That patronizing kind of tone many parents use. He didn't do any of these things. He just picked me up, gave me a tight hug, and uttered one single word: wonderful. So today, if I'm a writer, 42 books, 30 translations, it's because of that very sweet gesture and that one single word. And he encouraged me to continue writing. I started writing satire. I loved satire, but then I got into serious trouble because a satire which I wrote lampooned the entire political system. Every political leader worth his heavyweight was kind of, ripped apart by me. And when the management came to know that, when the managing director came to know that, he said, no, you can't do this kind of stuff and all. At exactly around that time, my daughter was 4 and my son had happened. So Madhvi, my wife, who's also a colleague of mine, she had a full-time 9 to 7 job or whatever. So she encouraged me, she motivated me. She said, what a useless fellow you are. You can't boil an egg. You can't run a washing machine. You can't sing lullabies. You can't even wash the kids' bums. You think you're a great writer and satirist. Why didn't you tell stories to the kids while I take care of the younger one? So I started telling stories to my daughter, Ankita, and she lapped them up. I don't know whether she lapped, she liked the content or the fact that I could sing and dance, very badly. I'm a terrible, terrible singer and a great dancer. So I would sing terribly and dance, I think, with great elan and all that. So whatever she liked went to the laptop and then to the publisher and all that. And that's how I became a writer. One single incident, which was a real motivation, apart from my wife's inspirational talk, was that in my kids' school, they would invite people from different walks of life and ask them to speak about their profession, like lawyers and doctors, etc. So I was a corporate communications guy, so they invited me. I said, 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, what am I going to talk about corporate communications and public relations? Let me tell a story. So that was the first proper story I told. It was about 7 brothers, second, minute, hour, day, week, month, and year. It was about the value of time, how every second is important. We keep saying, we trivialize it. Oh, it's only a second. But that second is so very important. Now, after I told the story, around 3 months later, we had gone to my daughter Ankita's class teacher's house. So then she was saying that today something very interesting happened, or a couple of days back, something very interesting happened. I said, what happened? He said, I was telling the kids the importance of hygiene. So there was one youngster who raised his hand and he said, ma'am, is it as important as second? So this teacher couldn't understand. He said, what do you mean important as second? No, that day when uncle came, that uncle was saying that second is very important. So is hygiene as important as the second? Then I realized that this is my calling. After 3 months, a 7-year-old child can remember what I have told. That is it. After that, I shifted from satire. I partly write satire on my mother-in-law. Otherwise, it's full-time writing for children. And from writing, I shifted to professional storytelling. Professional, not in the sense of that I get paid or any such thing. Who's going to pay me? But I visit schools and tell stories and all, because I love that interaction, that rush of adrenaline. It makes me feel much younger. And the stories which I tell are the stories which I write. I don't take any story from any other source simply because I'm an egoist and I think I can write great stories. So I tell those great stories which I write.
Superb, superb. Yes, I have heard, because I know little Ramendra for since a couple of months. So I have heard his stories. He's really, all the time I keep on laughing and smiling. So I have to hide myself behind the video and laugh and then come out again and then sit down, because the way he presents and he tells, I cannot stop, that is direct belly laughter that comes so much. He just pushes me to laugh. So I cannot laugh in front of the camera. I need to mute my camera and then laugh and then come out again. Whatever Ramendra tells, it's so interesting to listen. Every time he tells his stories, he shares his stories. It's really amazing to listen. And I really enjoy every bit of it. So it's really true that, yeah, the journey from your corporate world till your storytelling is really amazing. And I really love that, to listen it again and again, especially your first poem. I am in love with that poem also, the way you wrote that poem. That too is a real nice bit to hear it again and again. So I hope all of you who are watching us today live to just put your comments, and even those who are here and not putting the cameras on, don't laugh like me with the camera. You can come in the camera also and laugh, because I am laughing in front of the camera also. Sinchani is there, and Noor Ahmed is there. Noor is a very good moderator too. Welcome, Noor. And Sinchani is a poet who has joined us from Sri Lanka. So welcome, Sinchani, and you can keep your cameras on. And Sunil ji is there also from Sri Lanka, who has joined us. He is also a poet. So it's really amazing. You all can add your comments in the comment section, which we can read it out for our storytellers. And even we'll be asking you all also about storytelling in the end. So Noor Ahmed, also be ready. I'll be taking you also. In the meantime, I'll ask Mike one question. Okay, Mike, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, before you ask your next question, I'm going to stop you for a second and tell you, don't hide behind the camera. Laugh out loud and we who are telling stories, we change our stories based upon what we see. So if you hide with the screen off, then we cannot adjust our stories. If we get to watch you and see you laugh or see the tears or see you react, our stories will change and we can grow and become even better storytellers. So don't dare hide the laughter. We love to see the laughter.
Yeah, true. Okay, I'll do that. I'll try to do that because I feel that when I laugh, I just go bumpers in my, so it's better that I hide and then I laugh and then come back. So it's like, it's a very nice thing. Yeah, true, it's true. We should always laugh in front. Yeah, so coming to my question, Mike, that I was rumbling with the laughter. So before I go more crazy with my laughter, I'll just come with a question. Mike, what do you think makes it a great story? You have been telling stories, you have been writing stories too recently. So what do you think makes it a great story? What are the qualities necessary?
I want to start, I'm glad you asked that because I tell so many stories for families and for young children. A few years ago, I went to Asia for the very first time, and I was asked, can you tell stories to kindergarten? Now in America, kindergarten is 5-year-olds, some 6-year-olds. So I said, absolutely, no problem. But when I got to my intended audience, kindergarten there was everyone below first grade. So I had babies 18 months old that I was trying to tell stories in a different language. And I'm speaking in English. They were listening and not understanding the English. And at that moment in time, I learned something very important. May I demonstrate? I used to tell a story called The Cat's Tail. And I always tell the audience that once upon a time, there was a cat, and the cat was always hungry. And I ask everyone, and do this in your screen, touch your pointer fingers together right now. Everybody, touch your pointer fingers together. Hold them up so I can see them on the camera. Now touch your thumbs together. You have just created a mouse hole. Now everybody, hold it up to your eye, hold it up to your eye, and look inside. And the cat would always say, hey, is there a mouse in there? Go ahead, ask, say.
Hey, is there a mouse in there?
Then he would nod his head up and down. Nod your heads up and down, say, yup, there's a mouse in there. Then he would put his tail in the air. Oh, now wait a minute, you don't have tails, do you? So you have to raise a hand in the air and pretend that it's a tail. So raise a hand and bend it over because it's a tail. And he would move his tail back and forth in front of the hole. And he would sound out his favorite sound. Meow, meow, meow. And a mouse would come out. The mouse would look at the tail. The mouse could not look away. Then the cat would take his paw, take your other hand, make it look very scary, like the claws of a cat. And the cat would take his paw and he would go, and gotcha. And he would grab that mouse by the tail. The mouse was wiggly. Go ahead, you can hold it up. You can wiggle it. He would lift it up and he would tip his head back and he would, oh, he would eat it. Oh, the cat loved to eat the mouse and it was delicious. And he would not be hungry anymore. And the story goes on. But when I told the story one time, I had broken my arm. And when I broke my arm could not move. My arm was inside of a sling. So I told the children, touch your pointer fingers together. And the children touched their pointer fingers together. And I said, now touch your thumbs together. They touched their thumbs together. Then I said, now hold it up to your eye. And I held it up to my eye. And the very young children all went like this. And it looked like a letter C. The older children all went like this. I learned a very important lesson. Some listeners only follow what you say. Younger listeners and children, as they are developing, follow what they hear and follow what they see. I learned in that moment to adjust my storytelling. So what makes a story memorable and important? I try to, if it's for young listeners, I want things that they hear. Maybe it's repetition. Maybe it's the speed that I talk with. Maybe it's the voice and the timbre of my voice, loud or soft or scary or sweet. But it's also the things that I do with my face and my hands that they can see. And many times I add gestures with my body. And so the things that we hear, that we see, and kinesthetically when we move, if I have all of those in a story, I find that I reach many, many more children. It seems to be that I reach adults too. And I know this is true because I told a story in China. And the custodian, the janitor who was sweeping up, had stopped. They said he could not understand a single word in English. But afterwards, he came up and told me in Chinese through the interpreter. He says, I really like the story that you told. And she said, how did you know? Oh, I knew because of what I saw. I saw his face. I saw his body. I saw his actions. And those things reached the adult as well as the children. So a story is many different things that make a story memorable. But of course, you have to have a well-developed story in order for those things to be important.
Superb, superb. Excellent, excellent way of expression. And these are the things I would request all the younger storytellers, please do mark all these pointers and cultivate on that, as I am taking my nuggets from today's session and I'm going to develop on my potentialities as a storyteller too. So as I told in the beginning, that it's not necessary that only a child can tell a story. Even in the corporate world nowadays, storytellers are given more upliftment in their job too. So you need to present your story, what you need to speak, what you need to say, the way you say, the way you are trying to motivate others, that is what is the concern. So it's very nice to listen the way you said we need to highlight. And this is very, very important. And the hole which you made, the mouse hole and the tail, I just love that, Mike. It was superb. So coming with that same question to you, Ramendra, since I want to listen from you too once again, I would love to know from you what are some of the things. Of course, it'll be the same somewhat, but something additional to that. What do you think makes it a great story, since you have written around more than 45 books as of now? So in reference to your new book too, you can say that.
I'll start with the reference to the new book. I was working for a public sector for 32 years, for the government sector, and then I took voluntary retirement so that I could follow my passion, which is writing. Because when you're in a full-time job, it's really, really difficult to devote time, I still managed to do quite a bit. So now I'm a full-time writer. So this 32 years of experience was really, really amazing. Amazing in the sense that for Mike, this might be new, but in a corporate sector today, the sublime and the ridiculous are so conjoined that sometimes you do not know where the sublime ends and the ridiculous begins, And the politicians, the bureaucrats, and the media, they interfere into every aspect of your working. The average employee or the average executive is sincere, he's hardworking, he's committed, but his freedom is, kind of strangled. His aspirations are throttled, and there are n number of things which are happening. So I took a satirical take on that. Of all the characters I met, I added a little bit of more pungency to it and all that, made them more sardonic or whatever, made my statements and all. So the book has just come out, and people are loving it because it's completely based on true facts, and yet it is a complete satire. Like I've talked about the managing director, that he reminded me of an individual who's suffering from a combination of what is it called, piles and some kind of bowel syndrome and all that. So, and his favorite habit was to question the parentage of his juniors. And every time he felt ill at ease, he would pick up the phone and bark invectives in the telephone and all that. It's just a small example. So it's full on satirical, completely different from what my children's stories are. So I believe that a good storyteller and a good writer should be able to traverse the entire spectrum, whether it's children's stories or satire or prose or poetry and all. As far as storytelling and story, I would like to say that the most important thing is to know your audience, the age of your audience, the sensibilities of your audience, the sensitivity of your audience. Otherwise, you're going to fall flat. Second is, I believe that every story should start with a hook, right? To get, especially when you're telling children, so that to get them interested, right? Then your voice modulation, which Mike is so fantastic at. I've listened to his story, like I watched his story. He's fantastic, really, really incredible. Then your expressions, right? And according to me, in as many stories as possible, bring in that humor. If it's possible, bring in that humor. And lots and lots of dialogues. Nobody likes a story which is going on like stream of consciousness kind of thing. It moves on and on and on. For adults, it might be okay. But for kids especially, try to have a lot of dialogues, a lot of twists. And now I come to the most important aspect, which many publishers have told me I should not be including, and that is a value. They believe that anything which is value-based is kind of thrusting a moral down the throat, is being didactic. But I say my stories can be racy, can have a lot of entertainment, and yet have a value. So when the child listens to the story, what he remembers, apart from the entertainment, is the little tiny, whiny, teeny, weeny bit of value which will take with him forever and ever. As storytellers, our job, our bloody job is not only to entertain, but to entertain and add that touch of sensitivity, of empathy, of these kind of values.
Superb, superb. I'm just speechless. I'm just enjoying each and every point. And today I'm getting a lot of nuggets. I'm just jotting it down to take it back. As Noor Ahmed is also writing, is giving a lot of lovely comments in the chat box. We should take a look at the chat box. So he is telling that story can connect to a soul, to feel and memorize easily rather than the ordinary delivery. Excited, yeah, really, it's super excitement. Noor Ahmed, yeah, really true. We have two amazing storytellers with us, and their stories, we'll be listening to them too, the stories. But before that, I just want
Rachna, if
yes,
pardon
yes.
my interjection, I would also like to say just one line, and I'm sure Mike will agree with me. We are all stories. Each one of us is a story.
Yes.
True, true, very true. I too agree with that. Being not a storyteller too, but still I too agree that yes, we all are stories. Correct. That's absolutely true. That's what I told in the beginning. We have stories around everywhere. We all are storytellers. We have been telling stories without knowing the art of it. But of course, people like you who are already achievers, you all know the art and the technique, which is really necessary to know when we are imparting it in a platform. So right now, what I'm doing, I am also telling a story. I am also imparting, but my way of communication, my way of telling will try to bring in more and more people, attract. It depends on as I am able to impart my speech to others. So storytelling is an art which I feel, though we all are storytellers in the long run, whether we are as mother or a father, we have been trying to tell stories, but this art form needs to be developed. And people like you who are achievers can really show us the real path and the pointers today, which already both of you have given us some, and I have written it down. And I'm going to develop on that too in my point of view also. So coming to my next question, Mike, of course, I'm taking Mike in the beginning. So I'll just ask Mike that why are stories important, especially in today's times? Why this modern time people, why do we need that stories are very, very important? Why do you think so?
I think that we need stories so we can talk to each other, because people can listen to stories even when they don't like the other person or don't know the other person. The best example is in about a 3 to 5 minute story. May I please? I'd like for you to go ahead and everybody hold up one finger with one hand and hold up two fingers with the other hand. Repeat after me. 2 goats. First goat. Down the mountain. Say, down the mountain. Across the bridge. You repeat. Across the bridge. Up the mountain.
Up the mountain.
Eat some grass. Eat some grass. Yum, yum, yum.
Yum,
Yum, yum, yum.
Yum, yum.
Everything I say, you repeat, and I'll stop repeating. Goes back.
Goes back.
Second goat. Down the mountain.
down the mountain.
Across the bridge.
Onto the
Up
bridge.
the mountain.
The mountain.
Eat some grass.
Some rats.
Yum, yum, yum.
Yum, 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 yum.
Goes back.
Goes back.
Goes back.
Both goats.
Both
Down the mountain.
down the mountain.
Across the, uh-oh. One goat said, I'm going across the bridge. Second goat said, I'm going across that bridge. First goat said, well, I'm going first. But the second goat said, I am going first. No, you're not. No, you're not. You want to fight? Yeah, let's fight. Everybody. Boom, boom, boom. Ah, splat. They fell into the water. First goat said, that second goat is so mean. Second goat said, that first goat is so mean. Same story, different telling. 2 goats, everybody. First goat, down the mountain, cross the bridge, up the mountain, eat some grass. Yum, yum, yum. Goes back. Second goat, down the mountain, cross the bridge, up the mountain, eat some grass. Yum, yum, yum.
Yum, yum, yum.
Goes back. Both goats, down the mountain, across the, uh-oh. First goat said, I am going across that bridge. But the second goat said, I am going across that bridge. The first goat said, I am going first. But the second goat said, no, you're not. I am going first. Look, do you want to fight? No, fighting is dumb. Want to talk? Yeah, let's talk. Everybody, talk, talk, talk. Talk,
Talk.
goats talked.
Talk.
They told each other stories. Crossed the bridge, up the mountain, some grass, yum, yum, yum.
Yum, yum, yum.
But this time the first goat said, boy, that second goat is nice. Second goat said, boy, that first goat is nice. End of story. Which story's best for the world? The first version or the second version?
Second one, second.
We can fight We can be enemies. We can each try to out-talk each other. We can out-yell each other. We can hate each other. Or we can talk with each other. We can tell each other stories. We can become friends. And the second version, to me, is always the better version, where we can love each other and learn each other's stories, because when we know each other's stories, we truly can become friends and have a better chance of making this a better world.
Superb, superb. What more best example would be with the story which you shared with us, Mike? That was amazing, superb. And we understood the difference between the two stories and what is really necessary now in this importance in today's time. Stories can tell you in the best way what is necessary right now. So Ramendra, if you would agree, I would love to listen from you also a story that why stories are important in today's time.
I have told you a couple of things as far as parents are concerned. I think stories are important to connect, as Mike said, and most importantly, the right kind of stories, because we've had storytellers down the ages who had a fantastic impact, right from Jesus Christ to Muhammad to Guru Nanak to Lord Buddha. They were all telling stories. In the last century, we had two storytellers around the same time. One was Mahatma Gandhi. His story was based on empathy, truth, and credibility. And there was another storyteller, equally impressive, but he believed in propaganda, Hitler. So it is not only that stories are important, the right kind of stories are important. That's why I have been rejected by almost 7 or 8 publishers, because they believe that if I tell a value, like I said, it is preachy. I say that it is not preachy, it is the way you say it. And like Mike was saying, that which story is better? The second story is better. So I have, in every story of mine, I've written more than 200 stories, short stories and novels. It's always there. Entertainment is there, excitement is there, dialogues are there, suspense is there, adventure is there. But yet, there is a feel-good factor. The child, when he closes that book, he feels that he's carrying, the takeaway is there. And that takeaway is the values which I have talked about. So I believe that in these fractured times, storytelling is humongously important. What happened during COVID? In COVID, COVID showed us that how we are intruding into nature. Nature is not intruding into us, into our space. And we are the custodians of the environment, not the owners. But we think we are the owners, and we completely rip apart the environment. And 50, 60, 70 years from now, there's going to be hardly anything left. So these stories have to be told in the present context. The children need to know, the adults need to know that the time is now before it is too late.
Yes, very true, very true. I truly agree. And yes, of course, Ramendra, I have been listening to and reading a couple of books which you wrote also about your hero worshippers and everything about the Indian traditions and custom, about culture, teaching. You know, we need to tell our younger generation with the help of stories. So we need a lot of stories which is having a moral behind, not necessarily the moral which was in once upon a time, but we can relate it with, of course, fairy tales give them a dreaming sensation. They go to a dream world and make them develop those qualities. It is necessary to dream. People are forgetting to dream. So fairy tales, the stories which are there in the fairy tale types, it is also elaborating the mind space and giving you a space to wander off into the, you can say, the fairy tale land, and which is very, very important for a child's growth and development. As a parent point of view, I'm just trying to share, because I saw that nowadays, realistic, of course, it's necessary. The children are born with that the way they develop, the way they give you answer in the classroom you enter. I don't think I was a child when I was a small child in school. I could answer questions to my teachers like that. I used to think and think and think, and then finally my hand would come up, Miss, can I say the answer? So, but nowadays students will abruptly, if they know the answer, they directly put their hands up. Yes, I'm ready with the answer. So there's a change. There's a change in tradition, and our children are little bit away from wondering. When we tell them that you read the fairy tales, they need to think twice. Though, so it is our duty as parents to introduce those stories in the childhood days itself. Cinderella, the mouse and the hare, the lion and the mouse, because these stories somehow in the later years will come to the story or as the books which we write. When we don't find any themes and stories, we normally tell that read the children books. So stories are hidden there. So the mouse can be a normal human being, Aam Admi, and the lion can be the big boss. And the lion and the mouse story can be transformed from an author's point of view if it turned to be an author. So the child, if the base is reading those fairy tales, I feel the development is growing on at a larger space. So I would love to hear, because we have our Shania, who is the youngest storyteller, also joining in. So welcome, Shania. We cannot see you though, but I hope you're listening to us. We have storytellers who are sharing the skills and techniques which is necessary for storytelling. So Shania is also sharing a lot of stories in the platforms, and she is an amazing storyteller. So my next question, Mike and Ramendra, both of you, I would just love to ask that what qualities should a storyteller possess to engage his charm and his audience, to the audience? So what type of story should he present to the audience so that the audience gets glued to it? So I cannot take randomly any story and tell in front of the audience. If the audience is the corporate world, if the audience is from the children's world, if the audience is every age, all age groups. So mostly we have all age groups joining in. So what type of stories would capture, that attract that audience? So if you could give an example of a story or tell a story and tell us what type of story would get connected with the audience. So Mike, over to you first, and then the same question with Ramen.
First, I really recommend no matter what story you want to tell, you reduce it to the smallest part so you can learn it. One, you have to have a story that you like. If you don't like the story, your audience will not like it. So first of all, you must find a story that you like, and you may have to read or listen to hundreds of stories to find one that you like and that you love, because that to me is primary, that you like the story. But secondly, you reduce the story to the smallest possible number of characters. Too many characters, you lose the audience. Too long of a story, you lose the audience. Too many details, you lose the audience. One, you love the story. Two, the plot is fairly simple and you have to learn it well. And this is not by memorizing, but by telling it aloud, reading it yourself until you have the story in your heart and in the back of your head. So you can tell the story. If you mess up the order, it's still going to be okay. You have to internalize the story well enough that you can tell it. And if you have one major point to the story, that makes it even better. And an example, a story that I love, a story that is simple, the number of characters is very small, and the story has a major point. This is a very important story in today's world. And I'll preface this with, in America, I have learned that I am trying to go ahead and learn. I know some Spanish. I can speak a little Spanish. I'm learning to speak Chinese. I wish I was able to come to India enough or speak enough that I could learn some Hindi. But many Americans are only into learning their own language. And to me, they limit themselves. So I tell this story, it's a short one. I tell the story to encourage people to learn another language. Again, I like the story. The number of characters is there. It's limited. The plot is simple, and it has a main point to the story. Mother cat one day told her two children, Jesus, we are going to go on a picnic. I want you to come with, but whatever you do, you stay away from the dog that's on the other side of that fence. That dog is mean. That dog will tear you to pieces. But one of the baby cats says, I'm not afraid of that dog. Are you afraid of that dog? And her brother said, no, I'm not afraid of the dog. Are you afraid of that dog? Not me. And they went on up to the dog and says, hey, dog, you are dumb. And of course, the dog, hey, dog, your mother is ugly. Hey, dog, you don't have a brain in your head. And the dog, tried to run through the fence, but he could not go through the fence. The dog tried to jump over the fence. He could not go over the fence. The dog, he had been insulted. That dog was so angry. He ran around and around and around. He could not get out of the fence. But then the dog thought, the dog started to dig, and the dog went under the fence. And here came the dog. And the two kittens, meow, meow, both ran to their mother. Mother cat took one kitten, put her behind her. She took the second kitten. Mother put the second kitten behind her. Mother raised her back. Mother cat went. And that dog ran back home underneath the fence, filled in the hole. Mother cat looked at her two babies. She said, from now on, when I talk to you, both of you listen. And in school, I want you to learn a foreign language, because knowing another language is always helpful in life. A silly, simple story. But when I tell the story, I loved it to begin with. It was short and easy to learn. It had a small number of characters, and it had a basic single idea. And when I have people who tell me, well, they ought to know English if we're going to live here, I tell them that story, and sometimes it makes them feel very simple and very limited, because when I tell the story, I'm actually sometimes poking fun of people, but I'm doing it through a story, so it doesn't totally insult them. But it's a way that I know that the stories are important and they can learn from my story.
Superb, superb, very nice. The dog story. And Mike, let me tell you, you have been using a lot of prepositions, and I feel that kids will learn above, under, bottom. So there are a lot of things to learn, and we are developing a grammar too, English grammar too, the words which are there. We know the use of the prepositions in its correct place. So into, under, above. So these are the words, which is very, very important. Wow, Humpty Dumpty. Superb, superb.
Well, in
Had
one
a
of my
great pop.
children's books, I included family words, animal words, color words, and many of the direction words with the prepositions under. Humpty leaned forward, he leaned backward, he leaned left, he leaned right, he stood up, he sat down. And so many of my stories, I purposely do this because I believe that I can use stories to help teach various language skills.
Yes, true, very true. I just love that idea, because normally I too do the same way, being a language teacher for the last 26 years. To give them language or teach language in a class becomes sometimes very boring. So I make it very interesting with the help of stories like you did just now, specifying on the word, and even to motivate people, the students, to read books. They have forgotten that. Nowadays, with the help of technology, they always surf the net. Though it's not a bad idea, it's a good thing. I encourage that. But reading books and turning the pages and reading is really, really very important. So to encourage that, I have been telling stories to my students, and I always leave it halfway. And that too, at that point when they need to know something more. I have already told this in my platform before also, that whenever the important part of the story comes, then as the lion was racing towards in the forest, in the dense forest, everything was calm and quiet, and the little girl was heading towards searching for her mother. The lion from the other side, the girl from the front side. Nobody knew the turn, what was going to happen. Will the girl be saved by the mother? She is just walking step by step, step by step. And then I suddenly stop. And my students tell, ma'am, after that, what happened? I said, go and read the book. You have to find out the book from the library and read the book, and that will give you the ending of the story. So in that way, the children, they could not keep on into that hole, that touch. And so they used to go and either get the book from the library and complete reading that story. So that was a little technique. So coming to Ramendra again, as well as my audience too. I hope you all are enjoying the session. Noor Ahmed is writing the comments. Others too, you can put your comments in the chat boxes, fill it up with a lot of comments. We have the certificates, also participation certificates for all those who are actively participating. I would request Shania also to share the comments. Do share your comments if you're enjoying the stories from Mike and Ramendra. Of course, I could see Shania was telling that it's always good to listen to Ramendra sir's story all the time. So Ramendra is very popular with the kids already in India. So now how you are enjoying with Mike's stories, do let us know. Please put it in the comment section. So coming to my next question with Ramendra. Ramendra, can you please tell me that what is that charm which you can keep your audience glued in whichever platform, in whichever in front of whichever audience? Do you need to select it audience based? Suppose right now we have an audience which is a combined age group of all the age groups. So what type of story would you prefer to share with the audience? So over to you, Ramendra.
I'll answer your question
With a story.
with a story, right? I'll only add that whatever Mike has said is bang on. I agree with almost everything he said, especially about the languages, like I can speak English, Hindi, Telugu, Odia, Urdu. And that's a big, big, big blessing. And here I'm trying to learn Kannada. So the story is called A Tale of a Tale. Not tale which comes out of the backside of an animal, but a tale as in a story of a story. This is told in the first person. I'm telling on that behalf. My name is Butki and I'm a tale. I'm a story. The story begins with my grandmother, who was called Grand Tale. She lived with people who were still in the caves. The wheel had not been invented. They hunted birds and animals with stones, with bows and arrows and spears. They ate fruits and berries from the jungle. Life was tough. Life was hard. But were they unhappy? No. They worked very hard. They slogged it out during the day. And in the evening, around the fire, they told each other stories. And the most popular story was Grand Tale, my grandmother. The story of Grand Tale was passed on from generation to generation, grandpa to granddaughter and grandma to grandson, went on and on and on. Then there was another tale. You've guessed it, that was my mother, mum tale. But then the scenario was different. The wheel had been invented long time back. You had power, you had industries, you had roads. But were the people happy? No. They were not as happy as the friends of Grand Tail. Why? Because two monsters had been created. One monster, the monster of competition, called competitivitis, the disease. And second, the monster of money. Everybody wanted to be richer, more successful than the neighbor. The only person who was happy was whose neighbor was unhappy. And this competition created such a kind of chaos that people were always struggling. But there was one saving grace. The brothers and sisters and uncles and aunts and grandmas and grandpas, they all stayed together in a big joint family. And sometimes over weekend, they exchanged stories. Mum Tale was the most popular story, and the best story was told by the grandpa. No, by first the grandma and then the grandpa, because grandmas are far, far, far better than grandpas in telling stories. And then what happened? One day, a girl called Rachana Chakraborty came to that small town, and she said, "This mum tale is so beautiful, so lovely. I will make it into a book." So she made it into a book with beautiful illustrations and nice paper and binding and all that. And mum tale was passed on from hand to hand and school to school and kid to kid and library to library, and everybody read it. Then Rachna Chakravarti wrote another story, even cuter, even sweeter, even lovelier, even funnier than Mum Tale. Yes, you have guessed. That is me, Putki. And she put me in a small book. It was so beautiful. It had silky, silky, smooth, smooth kind of paper and absolutely gorgeous illustrations. But alas, nobody picked me up. I was in the bookshops and in the libraries. Now you can ask me why? Because kids were too busy with WhatsApp and Facebook and Insta and God knows Twitter and gaming and all that. Nobody wanted to read. And their parents, if they ever gave them books, they gave them books which would make them more competitive, which would make them smarter people, not better people. They would give them books which would make them get a better living, but not lead a better life. Finally, I was purchased by a jhal mudi wala. Jhal mudi wala for Mike's information is somebody who sells dry snacks in paper, because plastic was banned. So this book was given to a scrap dealer who gave it to this fellow. So he took it home and he dumped it. And all around, Budki found, what did she find? Torn newspapers, old magazines. In between that, I was lying all desolate. Then suddenly I heard a squeal. Wow! A young little voice, a girl picked me up. And she had such a lovely voice. She was slightly dusky, a pert of a nose, small ears, and some sparkling teeth and curly hair, and such an enchanting smile. And she went through like this and like this and like this. And then she told, "Papa, what a lovely present for my birthday. I've never got a better present than this." The next day, she led me again and again and again. And then she told her papa, "Papa, tomorrow we have this storytelling competition, and I'm going to read from this lovely book." Her papa said, "Beta, you have never gone on stage. Do you think you'll be able to?" So then this girl whose name was Kushi said, of, of, of course, Papa, the story is so lovely. I have to share it. I know I have a problem, but I will try. Then the Papa just picked her up, gave her a hug, and said, "Best of luck, my child." Next day, the competition started, and I was feeling nervous. Kushi was holding me tight to her chest. And when her name was called, she went to the podium and started reading. She stuttered, she stammered, She stammered, she stuttered, she stuttered and stammered and stuttered and stammered and stammered and stuttered. She paused, but she didn't stop. And then she came back and sat. After the competition, the principal ma'am announced the result. First prize, second prize, third prize. And then she looked around and said, but there is one special prize for one special girl who had the courage which many of us do not have. So for that gutsy little girl called Kushi, here is a special cup. And for the first time in her life, Kushi got a cup. And that night when Papa came home, I Butki, the book, and the cup were on that dusty old shelf. Many, many years have passed. Kushi is now a grandma. Tomorrow is a show and tell competition in which her granddaughter Roshni is participating. And you know what she's going to show? And you know what she's going to tell? I leave it to you.
Superb, superb, superb. The ending was awesome, amazing, as you always do. Building the story with the characters and the weaving of it was really, really so nice. It's superb always to listen to you delivering the story, especially. I have heard a few of your shows now. It's only to meet live one on one and listen to you telling the stories. So coming to that live thing, Mike and Ramendra, both of you. So in the live sessions, there are a lot of things. Probably when you are telling something, a story, there are certain points which you might forget to say, or which should have been said before, but you said it afterwards. So how do you make it up for that? Because the live audience is sitting in front of you, and there is no retake. Like right now, we can do a retake, we can do editing, everything can be done. But what about when it is live? When you are there in front of the audience, you wanted to say a part of the story which you just missed out, and you went to the other part, you jumped into the other part. So how do you bring that sequence, and how do you highlight that? So first, of course, Mike, with an example, which if you could share it.
Sometimes the order doesn't matter. That's why I put the stories in my heart and in my head, and it's as if I close my eyes and I make pictures behind my eyes, like my eyes become a camera, because then I know the story inside. Because if I memorize the story and I do something in the wrong order, I get lost, the story is broken, and I have to stop. But if I have the story in my heart, if I have the story in my head, and if I have pictures behind my eyes, sometimes I can slow up for a moment, smile at the audience, and when I do, then they think, ooh, something good is going to come. And I can even tell them, you know, the part that I did not tell you was, and I can sneak right into the story and I can tell it, because many times the audience has no idea that you skipped that part. You don't tell them, oops, I forgot. But you can tell them, one thing you don't know is that, and now you can sneak back, because if you have the story in your heart, you have it in your head, and you have it in pictures. And if the pictures come up in different order, it doesn't always matter. But the important thing is that you don't lose your confidence in front of the audience. Sometimes a moment when you stop, you take a breath, you tip your head a little bit, because that's a friendly way to look at the audience. And then you can tell it, because the audience thinks, oh, something good is coming up. I know it is. And they get all excited and they don't realize you were telling them something you forgot earlier.
Yeah, very true, very true. Superb. So I just love that you need to feel it and you never need to tell it out. You don't need to tell it out. I think that was very, very, I know Ramendra too will agree with that. that we always say, we should say it from the heart. We should be connected with the story. If we learn and say all the time, looking into the story, once upon a time, there was a mouse, there was a lion, and the lion went into the, so it becomes, the story is not at all connected. So and even when we are live, there is no point of looking in anywhere. Right now, we are in a platform, in the online platform, where we can, shift the screens, tabs, and we can see. But when we are live, there is no place to see too. We have to be connected with the story. And as a result, we need to be putting our heart into it, as Ramendra always keeps on telling that. So coming to my next question, Mike.
Let me also answer this.
Yes,
Please.
yes,
Yeah,
surely.
for me, this issue doesn't happen because all the stories which I tell, like I mentioned, are the stories which I write. So nobody else knows except my wife in the audience. And I've told my wife that you ever point out my fault, I'll stop flirting with you. We've been married only for 33 years. Only for 33 years. So she can't take it if I don't flirt with her on a day-to-day basis.
Superb, superb. So, that was, I told you, Mike, you're going to laugh, listen to Ramendra. And sometimes I put my camera off for that is the reason, to laugh my heart
This,
out.
for
And
everybody's sake, this means thank you. So thank you for
Thank
sharing
you.
that. And when I do this, that's a way of applauding for online.
So I should do this.
Hardest times,
Thank you.
one of the
thank
hardest
you.
times when you forget something is if you were trying to record your stories and make a video. Because when you are making a video and you mess up, you don't want to have to start all over again. So you stop for a few seconds, give yourself some silence, and then you just simply retell, because now you can cut out your mistakes. When you're making a video, very easy to cut out the mistakes and replace them. But in live performances, it is very difficult, even when you are telling your own stories.
Very true, very true.
But when I'm telling my own stories, I have the option of making it up. Suppose I forget something, I add a few things and all and then move on. So it's happened to me a couple of times, but because I know the story so very well and nobody else knows, so I just add on a couple of things, and then move on.
Yes.
So nobody knows that I've actually, slipped a bit or I've missed out a bit. And my
Wow.
wife won't tell. So
Lovely, amazing. True, very nicely said. And I think I've got a lot of things today, takeaways from both of you. Coming towards the end of the session, I would just love to know, since you both are storytellers and you both have been an amazing author too, so which can you please share with me today on this platform, that which are your, or who are your favorite writers and storytellers, and at least one of your favorite story amongst all the stories which you have written and told. So any one of your favorite stories. Of course, everything is the best because you all are authors. All the stories will be very close to your heart. So any of the other storytellers rather than you, you are of course a very good storyteller, but rather than you, whom do you admire as a storyteller?
A very dear friend of mine, his name is Bobby Norfolk, Norfolk. He is from the St. Louis area. He and his wife, Sherry Norfolk, are two wonderful storytellers. And I totally love them when they are telling stories. But I have a friend named Mike Anderson who plays music. I played the dulcimer, my instrument that I was showing a little bit earlier. It's a musical instrument. And Mike plays wonderful music. And I have so many storytelling friends all around the United States that are so talented. We don't compete against each other. Instead, we get together and we just share stories, laugh, and have fun together. And we love each other's work and encourage each other. So much that I ended up taking, there were 5 of us who went to Taiwan a few years ago. I took 4 of my storyteller friends with, and we performed all around Taiwan for over, we did, oh my gosh, We performed for more than 40,000 people in a matter of 1 week's time, doing live performances all around central Taiwan. And we all had so much fun because every time someone would tell a story, oh, that reminds me, and someone else would tell a story. And so we don't compete, but we have fun and share each other's stories. And you ask one of the favorite stories, and to that end, one of my favorite stories is a children's book that I have created based upon a folk tale, and it is called The Goats in the Garden. And The Goats in the Garden, it was originally a Norwegian folk tale, but I have to do my own version of a story. I cannot go ahead and just retell someone else's story. It has to be my story to make it so I can tell it. So I always start the story with little Johnny was talking to his grandma. Grandma says, Johnny, will you do something for me? Of course, Grandma. I want you to watch my goats. Would you take my goats up to the mountain and make sure they eat grass? But Johnny, don't let my goats go in the garden because they are naughty. Those goats will go in the garden. They will eat all of my vegetables. Johnny says, I promise, Grandma. But guess where the goats went? The goats went into Grandma's garden. And when I pause like that, it invites the listeners to fill in the blanks. But Johnny told the goats, out of the garden, out of the garden, out, out, out. Can you point at me with your pointer finger? Can you point right now? I know pointing sometimes not polite, but can you point and say, out of the garden, out of the garden, out, out, out. Say it, out of the garden, out of the garden, out, out, out. But the goats went, nah. And they started eating Grandma's corn. Well, Johnny began to cry. And as Johnny cried, along came Rabbit. And in my story, Rabbit cannot get them out of the garden. And when Rabbit cannot get them out, along comes Fox, and along comes Dog. And along comes Bear, and finally only a little bee can get them out of the garden. But the story, I had to have something that the children could do and that they could say. So I wanted them, I thought a long time. And all of the children, when I teach them how to say, out of the garden, out of the garden, out, 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 and they all say it together. Now they are learning vocabulary. They are saying it together. And I always have Johnny began to cry. And then Rabbit begins to cry. And along comes Fox, and later Fox begins to cry. But the interesting piece, the original folk tale had Rabbit, it had Fox, it had Dog, and then came Bee. We missed a character somewhere because I told it to my grandchildren. And I said, and along came, and my grandchildren said, a bear, you have to put a bear in the story, Grandpa. So I put a bear in the story, and ever since then, Bear has become one of the characters in the story. And so my stories evolve based upon my watching and listening to the audience, which is why earlier I said, I need to see you as you are laughing because I know what you like. I need to hear what you can add to the story because you as a listener may take my story and make it better yet. The interesting piece, when the publisher was going to publish this book, she says, too many characters. You have to take someone out. Now, when you write a story, you fall in love with your characters. And you don't want to kill off a character. So who am I going to take out? Well, I chose not to take out a character. I put Fox and Fox and Dog on the same page in the book. And the publisher said, oh, good. The book is now short enough. We can do it. It works. And yet I still kept all of my characters because You and I both write books, and when we create stories, you fall in love with your characters and you don't want to go ahead and kill them off in a story. And sometimes when I tell that story, I use silly ways to do it. Sometimes I have a goat hat. Sometimes I tell my story by using pictures and picture cards, sometimes with the words in English. Sometimes, as you and I both agree, it's very important to learn other languages. So sometimes I put it in other languages. If I'm doing it with a bigger audience, I might use bigger signs. And so many times I use props to help me tell the story, because this helps me with very young children can understand it, as well as, of course, we adults who just love stories, and we can learn to tell it also, because one telling of the story, when it's done well, is sometimes enough. So another adult like you and I, we could take the story and tell it to someone else. Then the story lives on to the next generation.
Superb, superb, superb. And I love that cards which you use, the play cards. And that gives the children, from the educational point of view, also you are teaching them with certain words, the animals, the names of the animals, everything can become more highlighted. So that is the best way of imparting your stories in an audience. So Ramendra, coming back to you, and we also have Shania there. So I would love to hear from Shania today. What did you learn? And which story did you like the best from Ramendra's story, as well as from Mike's stories too? So Shania, I would be asking to you, but before that, I would ask Ramendra that, Ramendra, can you please tell, because who is your favorite storyteller? You are an amazing storyteller yourself. But rather than that, whom do you admire as a storyteller? If you could share it with us, and one story with an example. Of course, your favorite story. You have been telling a lot of stories and even writing, but your favorite story.
Uh, my favorite storyteller, I can't single out one, like Mike said. There is this lady called Jiva Raghunath, who's absolutely scintillating. I mean, she can capture, entrance, enchant an audience of 5,000. And another lady, Deepa Kiran, who's very good. She's got a
Yes,
great
I know
voice.
Deepa.
She's
Wonderful.
got a wonderful voice. She plays the instrument, she dances, and her eyes speak, right? And the third person is Tony, whom who I was introduced on this platform. He's an amazing, amazing storyteller. And today I met a gentleman on screen who's also mesmerizing. I think you might know him. His name is Mike, and he's just lock at a mind with his wonderful storytelling. And finally, there is one storyteller in my life who's been mesmerizing me for the last 33 years, and she's my wife. She's a wonderful storyteller because she has enchanted me. And I think all storytellers, the most important quality is they should be able to enchant, and mesmerize their audience. And you wanted to know the story which I have written, which I like?
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
I can't tell you the entire, I mean, the entire thing, because that will take long. But I can only tell you that how the story came about. So we were holidaying in Goa. My daughter was 11 and my son was 7. At the age of 7, the son thinks that father is the greatest. And by the time he's 27, he thinks father is a piece of crap or whatever.
Oh,
He challenges the dad and everything and all. But my son luckily was 7. So they were on the beach, and then suddenly uh, my son told my daughter, my son Aniki told my daughter Ankita, Papa can write a story on anything. Then Ankita said, "What? Don't be a chamcha. Chamcha means don't be such a servile person and all that, adore him so much and all. Papa is a good storyteller. He's a good writer. But writing on anything? He said, no, no, no. He can write. I know he can write." So then Ankita looked around and she said, "See this pebble. Can he write a story on a pebble?" He said, "Of course he can." And here, some distance away, I and Madhvi were looking at the sunset. But the Madhvi was looking at the sunset. I was looking into her eyes. And in this sublime moment, suddenly Ankita thrusts a pebble under my chin and says that you have to write a story on the pebble, and that too by 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. I said, what the hell? I've come here to, just to enjoy and all that. And this is not done. I do not know anything. Aniket added, Papa, it's my prestige. You have to write, and you have to write a good story. So while my wife and the kids were enjoying themselves on the beach, I was sitting in the room trying to scribble a story. But luckily, I managed to meet the deadline, and the story, The Pebble on the Beach, was written, and it also won a national award. It's one of my favorite stories. Is about a man called Satya, whose soul is transformed into a pebble by the devil. And this uh, person called Satya, he turns everybody around from evil to good, and finally he turns the devil himself into a good person, and devil goes towards God at the end and says, I want to be friends with God.
Nice.
Fantastic, superb. So that was really amazing, Ramendra. And the story which you had, it really captured our heart. And the sequence of that story, that's more captivating. So coming back towards the end of our session, already we didn't even knew with storytellers how the time went off so quickly. So I would just love which our audience has joined us, and I can see Shania. She's having little throat pain today, though our mother told me. But still, Shania, I would love to know from you, what did you learn from today's storytelling session from Dr. Mike and Ramendra? So what did you really like about the storytellers?
Thank you. I learned all the, I loved all the nuggets which I learned.
Wow. Can you just tell a small story which is very close to you? Anything, a very small one, probably.
Yes, The Squirrel Family Tree, written by me on a fine Monday morning while I was playing in my garden. The weather was so good. I could hear the wind blowing the branches of the tree. I could hear birds chirping around me. Cheep, 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 cheep. Coo, coo. Suddenly, I heard a sound of husky barking. Coo, coo, coo. On hearing the sound of husky barking, one squirrel came and sat on the branch of a tree. Then I heard a similar sound of husky barking. Then another squirrel came and sat on the branch of a tree, and they all shouted together, Katie, Katie, Katie. Then another squirrel came and sat on the branch of a tree. Then a cute little tiny baby squirrel came and sat beside her father. And then they all shouted together, Kiki, Kiki, Kiki. And then they all swung up in the air. How loving and caring it was. Moral of the story is nature is God's gift. We should protect and preserve it.
Superb, lovely, lovely on the spot. You're not well, I know, but still it was amazing to listen to you, Shania. And
May I narrate another quick little short story?
yes, yes, Shania, it's true.
The true friend. Once on a tree, there lived two pairs of parrots. Cheep, 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 cheep. On that tree, there also lived an old snake. But the snake was very weak to go out to look for some food to eat. So the parrots would leave some food near the hole. Cheep, 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 cheep. One day, an eagle was hovering over the parrots. Chee, chee, chee. Suddenly, a hunter came and aimed his arrow to one of the parrots. The snake saw his friends were in danger and he went and bit the hunter's foot. The hunter's aim got away, and instead, the arrow shot the eagle. The eagle screamed, ah, ah, ah. The snake wanted to show that he was a true friend. The moral of the story is. A true friend is a very valuable asset. Thank you.
Superb, superb, Shania. As usual, you're superb. And I hope the techniques which you learned today from Mike and Ramendra will really help you in building up your more stories. As right now, Mike, let me tell you, she has started writing stories too. And today, though she's not well, but she joined us. She was having a sore throat today, but still she joined in and she shared a couple of stories. She loves to say stories and work on stories. She is the youngest storyteller, getting a lot of awards and accolades to her name at this age itself. She tells story very, very amazingly. Lovely storyteller, and we have it in Creative Writing Modern Age, as Ramendra said, he being the managing director of our group, and he knows that we always encourage all the youngsters to come up and say their stories. And even Shania is one of them. She is an upcoming storyteller. And we also have another young storyteller too, though she couldn't join today, 3 years old. She too tells her stories. Of course, in little breaks, small stories. She's not able to pronounce well, but still the way of telling stories is so cute and so amazing. So that is what I call storytelling. It was lovely. So, Mike, can you share something for Shania, who has joined us?
The animal sounds and the way that you tell the story are just totally delightful. So thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you so much, sir.
This means thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And Ramendra, what did you feel listening to Shania? Little tips
Yeah,
from you.
I've heard her a number of times
Yes,
before,
yes.
and she always surprises me with her confidence. That is amazing for a kid so young. And the second
Yes.
thing is she gets completely involved in the character she's portraying, and she enjoys so much. And I would bless her and wish that she would continue to be like this forever and ever.
Amen.
Superb, superb.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Shania. Thank you so much. And I've been seeing Sinchini.
I'll be soon narrating a story which is written by you.
Ah, wow, Ramendra, that was
Oh.
for you, I think.
Oh God,
She'll be
Acha.
narrating a story written by you.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Wow, lovely. That's amazing. That's amazing now. So Sinchini, she's a poet here from Sri Lanka. So I would love to know from you today, how did you like the session today?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, it was a great session. I was apathetic about the subject of storytelling because I'm a poet. But now I'm overjoyed by this. Now I'm also interested in this subject. So great. And I would like to thank both the great speakers and also ma'am for joining me to this session. Thank you.
Sachini, I would like to tell you that Sri Lanka is my adopted country. 6 of my books have been translated into Sinhala, and one of the stories has been picked up by the government, and 3.5 lakh copies have been distributed in government schools.
Really great, sir.
Godage Publishers, they publish these books.
Right.
Yeah, they are in Colombo. I think you must be knowing that, yeah.
Thank you, sir. I'll look into it.
Yeah, please.
Sinchini is from Colombo only, right? Because Sinchini, you're from there only, yes.
Yes.
She was translating and teaching me a lot of language from there. I'm learning from her. Actually, she's my teacher right now. I'm learning a language because I love to learn languages. As Ramendra said, we are storytellers and we learn a lot of languages. So it's great. I'm learning from her. She's actually my teacher right now. So we have another amazing personality with us who has joined in. Noor Ahmed, I couldn't see you though, but anyway, you can share your feelings today as a session. How did you like it with storytellers? I know you are totally an international speaker, motivational speaker. So how did you like with the storytellers and sharing their stories?
Thank you so much for giving me the floor. And I'm really delighted to have these kinds of storyteller in today's session. Trust me, they are a mind-blowing storyteller as well as they are a good personal indeed. I just wonder when Michael shared the story with the great, what should I say, posture with the great expression, even the tune. Look at this, how beautiful it was. And Ramendra sir, you are really great because your way is different. Like every storytellers, their momentum, they're showing the story and sharing the story is very different. And this would make them a great, what should I say, very unique personality. And yes, you both share a great information, and I have just noticed some of the information, though I'm not as good as storyteller, but I will try to utilize this takeaway in my international platform whenever I get a chance to share some of the information. But I really love that by the story, whenever I have learned some book, I just feel bored. Trust me, for why? Because this book give all the bookish information. Yes, all the information is very needed for our life, but at the same time, I just lost my interest to read those books gradually. Whenever I found a story, and with that, with story, we can find some learning session and some elaborate information. That time I feel like, yes, this story connect me and I will definitely share this story as well. So all this thing, I do believe that if the teachers are good storyteller, I think the student won't be feel very bored. They will definitely love to learn. They will definitely love to do their study as a great way. So thank you so much, sister, for giving me the floor, and I feel really honored to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Noor. That was amazing to listen from you, though we missed to see you today. But anyway, that is not an issue. We just needed to listen to you. And as you said, that yes, already Mike told in the beginning of the session itself that as a teacher, as an educator, we need to be very good storytellers. Otherwise, the power of communication stops there itself. And being a language teacher, I know how important it is to specify on the words, on the dialects, the speeches, and how to make it more interesting, whether it's science which we are teaching or history which we are teaching or political science which we are teaching. If we are not a good storyteller, I don't think that the students would ever be interested in the lecture. They would just go keep dozing off. Oh my God, what a boring teacher is this? And even history, talking about so many big past old days, and then suddenly the student is going dumb. Oh my God, the student will go to sleep. So you need to be very good storytellers itself. And I feel today the technique which I learned myself, I have also learned being an educator for the last 26 years, but I have learned certain techniques from Ramendra. Of course, I'm always learning and listening to him. And today from Mike too, I collected a lot of things and which I'm going to implement in my teaching techniques too. And so that my students always tell that we want Rachna ma'am's lecture. So we want to sit in her lecture only. So I will implement all these techniques in my lectures too, the storytelling. That is very, very important. So
Exactly, exactly, sister. I do believe that even I will follow the Michael and Ramendra sir techniques as well as their way of delivering, because any kinds of international platform or any kinds of speaking or any kinds of encouragement, motivational talk, every single place is story is needed to connect the audience. So definitely is impact is everywhere. So not only the teaching, but also every side, I do believe.
Thank you, Noor. That was lovely. And let me tell my audience, Noor has joined us from Bangladesh and all the way from Bangladesh here, an Indian platform. So we have also a lot of time durations here in the platform. So thank you so much, Noor, for joining and sharing your views also about today's session. And of course, thanks to Mike and Ramendra, a small token of love from our side. I'd just love to present my screen from Creative Writing Modern Age for the time which you have spent with us. It's nothing much, but just a small. If I can share the screen. Thank you so much, Mike, for giving your valuable time and giving us the golden nuggets, which I will be using. And of course, my audience who has also listened to you will be using. And Ramendra, thank you so much. And this is for you, a small token of love. So thank you so much. And others, those who had participated will also be getting their certificates too. Of course, that I'll be sharing it in the platform, in our platform, and tagging all of you. And I can see Tony has joined us. So yeah, Tony, though it is the last moment we were winding up, but thanks for joining in, Tony. I'll just add him, spotlight him. Yeah, yes, we have Tony here. Hello, Tony. We are towards the end of the session, but thanks for joining in. And it's really lovely to have you on our platform. Shania is there, Ramendra is there, but we have a new storyteller with us in Creative Writing Modern Age. Mike now is also a part of Creative Writing Modern Age. So he too will be joining in sometimes for the storytelling. So Tony, I hope you can listen to us. Hello, Tony. Can you listen to us? Tony is a very good storyteller. He is the grandfather rather of storytelling, and his stories, I really enjoy listening to it. The way he tells the stories of the firebirds, the birds flying in the jungle, and the way he capitulates each and every one to his story, and we get glued into it. So I really love listening to it, and I have been learning and trying a lot to learn from Tony, his voice modulation. So that is very, very important, which Tony does always in his stories. And of course, right now I have learned from Mike too, how he modulates his voice with his actions. And Ramendra, of course, I told you that he cannot, I just can't stop. My laughter is so humorous. His sense of comic is bang on. And it's really nice to hear all of you. So Tony, can you hear us right now? Are you able to hear us, Tony, now? Connecting to the audio. So before we end up this session, Mike, as Tony is connecting to the audio, so can you please tell us how do you play that wonderful instrument and narrate story, probably towards the end as we are ending the session. So how do you narrate story with the help of that musical instrument? And what do you call that musical instrument?
Well, the musical instrument is called a dulcimer. It is spelled D-U-L-C-I-M-E-R. It is a simple stringed instrument, and you can go ahead and talk while you play chords. Nice chords in the background, and all you have to do is talk, and you can play at the same time. So you can sing along with it, or You can just wail back and forth, making simple sounds. I was sitting down to eat, just about to begin. There was a knock at the door. Can I come in? Well, I went to the door to see who I could see. There was a great big elephant just looking at me. I said, oh no, what you gonna do? I have enough for one. I have enough for two. I have enough for me. Yes, that's true. If I have enough for me, I have enough for you. The instrument can be played similar to a guitar. That particular song is one a friend of mine. You ask about very good storytellers. Bill Harley is, if you get a chance, look him up, Harley. That is his song. And he tells stories and sings songs. So I am constantly learning from other storytellers. And I use my dulcimer to make a little bit of music while I tell, but I'm not a great musician. But for any storyteller, a little bit of music goes a long ways, and listeners do enjoy it. So.
Super, super. I just love that music behind. Ramendra, didn't you like that music also?
Yeah, I heard it in one of his live or rather recorded programs where the dog and cat, how they become enemies. So when he starts strumming it, you feel like doing a jig. It's so tuneful.
Yeah, it's tuned. It has the sound of like a bagpipe, that type of harmony, but it does not growl and hurt your ears as much as the pipes do. But it's that gentle, harmonious sound.
So next time when we meet in Portugal or wherever, you are going to play this and I'm going to dance to that.
Now that would be good. I have danced in Portugal and sung and performed.
Wow.
That was 1972, so way too many years ago.
Yes, yes, true. Tony is not able to hear us. Tony just sent me a message. He can see us though, but not able to hear us. His audio is not getting, so I think, but he cannot hear us. So mic in the front panel, I'll just tell him. So he wanted, Tony, if you could speak something, if we can hear you, that's also done. There is an option, mic in the front. You have to use that option in that. Can you hear us, Tony? No. I don't think he's able to hear us. There is some connectivity issue. But anyway, Tony, we really missed you. We really waited for you. But it would be nice if we could hear some few words from you too. But somehow, I don't know, the connectivity can see you but can't hear you. He's writing to me. Can see us, but he's not able to hear us. Normally it doesn't happen. I don't know what should I guide him with. You should use the mic in the front. That only directly it comes, of course. The computer, the mobile asks you to use the mobile mic or the computer mic. They asks you default system. So you have to select that. I don't think he will be getting connected, but it's already late. Here in India, it's very late, and I know Ramendra is waiting for quite a long time. Is hungry, I think, and and his wife would be again becoming delirious if it doesn't access dinner in time. So I don't know, Tony. I don't know how much if you can get connected or not. We really missed you, but that's it. That's it to say. But of course, we really missed listening to you today's session. And the audience has joined us. Let me tell you, Tony is also an excellent storyteller. He is the grandfather of storyteller, or rather the father of storyteller, which I always tell him. He is the father of storytelling and the way he tells stories. And today, the session conducted by Mike and Ramendra was amazing. We had a lot of takeaways, a lot of golden nuggets with us, and we had catered so many lovely points if I summarize all the points, starting from the first point which Mike started, it was amazing, and we need to really cultivate on those points if we really want to be a storyteller. Probably first important thing is that you need to highlight and speculate on the characters and the words. Leave the story. Love the story which you are about to say. Whatever it is, whether it's a subject which you're going to teach in the class, first love that subject, especially for all the teachers. Since I'm a teacher, to all the other teachers, we really need to own that subject if you're going to teach that subject. If you are a history teacher, first of all, love history. So if you just tell because by default I had to be a teacher, so there is no other way out, then of course your students will get slowly detached from you. If you want to be attached with your students, you need to be a very good storyteller. So that I learned from Mike today. And then secondly, which I had already learned, is that own the story. Ramendra says it always, own the story which you will be saying that. And it never lose a chance to say that. Then thirdly, which I also learned, is your voice modulation. The noises which you make, the upper notes and the lower notes, it's not only for music, it's also for when you are speaking. The notes, the high notes and the low notes, you need to understand where to shout, where to say loudly, where to say very softly. So that's amazing. The story which you told, especially the mouse hole, I'll remember that forever. And the tail, I just love that, the way you move the tail. And I'm also going to use that. I'll be stealing some parts of it, Mike, from you in my sessions also, when I am with my students, to make them more attractive towards my lectures, because we are telling them stories about Robinson Crusoe. So it's a little, sometimes gets adventure stories and all. So to make it more interesting, I'll put in some animal character for sure. So thank you so much for that. Yes, Mike. Yes, very nice. Thank you so much for sharing those sites to us, the cat and the story. I can see that. Lovely. So please stay connected with us. Sanchini also is a poet, but she is now going to be a storyteller too. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So your message for today, both of you, what message on that ending note, we will end on that. So what message would you love to give to the upcoming storytellers? Mike, first over to you.
Always keep a story in your heart and always be prepared to share that story, because the stories will die if we do not share them with the next generation. So we must share the stories we hear, the stories that we make up, the stories that we know, in order for the stories to live on.
And Ramendra, what would be a message for all the young storytellers?
Live your life as if it's a story.
Wow. Live your life as if it's a story. So just have the story in your heart. Otherwise, it's going to die. Just tell the story before it's lost. And I believe that too, both the points are very important, that before we forget. So thank you so much, audience. Wonderful to have you all here with us, as well as to my guests. Gratitude and thanks from the bottom of my heart. Creative Writing Modern Age is really honored. Every single time we have a guest, it's really an honor for us to host it. And thank you, Ramendra, for always supporting Creative Writing Modern Age and giving us the platform and making it more wonderful with your presence. And Sanchini, right now, I'm really enjoying your presence too, because being a poet too, you always make it a point to join us. Veena ma'am has left us in between. And of course, we had Shania joining in as a storyteller and sharing some of her amazing stories from her basket of stories. Then we had Noor Ahmed from Bangladesh joining us, and I could see Dr. Nivedita Fukan also joining in. So thank you so much, all of you, for being with us. Do share the live so that everyone can get their bits from this session. And from next week onwards, we'll be live with other storytellers too. So until next time, always remember that storytelling is the purpose of the story is not to tell how to think, but to give you questions upon what to think on. So basically, stories have to be told or they die, as Mike told us. And when they die, we can't remember who are we or why are we here. So stories have to be told. So start telling the stories. Don't think how you are telling it or not. Just make it a point to say it. Just say it. And then slowly mark on the techniques, on the golden nuggets, which Mike and Ramendra has shared. And of course, Tony had already shared. So please do mark on all those pointers, and surely you will be able to make yourself enlightened into the world, and you will understand the present living of it. Thank you so much. Until next time, until next week, stay connected with us and keep on loving and showing your love for creative writing modern age. Bye-bye. Until we meet again. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, sister.
Yes, bye, Noor. Bye. Thank you so much. Bye, Dr. Nivedita Fukan. We couldn't hear from you though. We couldn't see you, but it was lovely to have you.